Hey, 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 check. Hey, check. Hey, hey. تمام الصوت 100%.
ثمانية، ثمانية على اثنان.
Hello, hello, hello.
تيست سي تيست سي تيست سي تيست. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سي تيست مايك 1 2. سي تيست مايك 1 2. فرنسي تيست مايك 1 2. سي تشيك مايك 1 2. سي تشيك هي 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 هي. سي تشيك مايك 1 2. سي تشيك مايك 1 2. الأمور تمام.
انت كده بس على الفرنسي ولا عايش؟
فرنسي.
مش عارف.
تشيك سي تشيك سي تشيك سي تشيك سي تشيك سي تشيك سي تشيك. Say check, say check, say check, say check. Say check, say check, say check. Hey, 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 hey.
انا
بس يا
ما
ريت تشغلي
ايش بدك تجرب؟
تشغلي لنا اللابتوب
عربي؟
presentation.
شغال.
ولكن قلنا كيف بنفتح. أي واحد هذا ولا هذا؟ طب خلاص خليه هيك. أوكي. Good morning. صباح الخير. Please have a seat. We will start. صباح الخير للجميع. معلش نقعد. Good morning all. Please have a seat. We want to start. We still have people coming. Okay. Please let me start by introducing myself and my colleague. My name is Manal Fatafta. I'm working as sexual violence advisor with MSF OCBA. I'm here with my colleague Anna. We will be your MCs for today. Anna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Freeman. I'm the leader of MSF's Quality Platform, and I'm pleased to be here as Manal's co-host for the day.
Thank you, Anna. So we are so happy to have you here. We are so happy to have our sixth pediatric days, especially in Amman, Jordan. So therefore, allow us to welcome you in both Arabic and English. I will start with the Arabic. So السيدات والسادة الضيوف الكرام.
Sorry, we are not receiving. Sorry. I will try my best to receive from the hall. Your Excellencies, welcome to you all. ما في.
الذي يجمع خبراء ومختصين وصناع قرار من مختلف المؤسسات.
All experts from different
تعزيز جودة الرعاية الصحية للأطفال. نتمنى إنه تكون جلسات اليوم فرصة للتعلم، تبادل الخبرات وبناء شراكات تسهم في تحسين خدمات صحة الأطفال في المنطقة والمناطق الأكثر احتياجاً. أهلا وسهلا بالجميع وشكرا لحضوركم مرة تانية. نتمنى لكم يوم مثمر.
So again, welcome everyone. It's great to have you here for this Pediatric Days. We have a very rich and full schedule today. I'm looking forward to it. But before we get into that, we do have a few administrative things to go over. So first of all, you can find the agenda for today in the QR code that should be in the bag you received at the entrance. So please feel free to look there if you're wondering what's coming next. There are several exits in this room, both on the back wall and on the front wall here, if we do need to evacuate. Toilets are outside and to the left. We will have coffee breaks throughout the day. That will be an opportunity for you to see posters, to have some refreshments, to socialize. Those will be downstairs. So you'll go downstairs and then to the right. Our lunch break will be across the hall here and also downstairs. If you are an MSF employee and you have a medical need during the conference, we have a staff health doctor on site who can help you. So his name is Dr. Hassan. I don't know if he's here now, but there's somebody on site. If you're not an MSF employee and you need medical assistance, please see the hotel concierge. Last thing, we all have our phones on us. We're all busy people. If you need to take a call, please take it outside so that we don't disrupt our speakers today. Okay? With all of that, I will now hand back over to Manal.
Okay. To officially open our pediatric days, please join me to welcome Dr. Suhaib Al-Ajlan, the head of the Middle East unit for MSF OCBA in Jordan. Suhaib has more than 15 years of humanitarian and medical leadership across the region, and his work focuses on improving pediatric and emergency work as well as strategic partnership. Also, because Suhaib is my boss, he's a great manager and a support. Suhaib, the floor is yours.
Good morning. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أسعد الله صباحكم بكل خير، وأهلا وسهلا بكم في العاصمة الأردنية عمان، حيث تنطلق فعاليات مؤتمر طب الأطفال السابع، والذي تسعد منظمة أطباء بلا حدود إقامته في هذا البلد الذي لطالما مثل منطلقا للعمل الإنساني في هذه المنطقة. It's our true pleasure to welcome you all in Amman, a city where history and humanity met, and where compassion continue to inspire action. On behalf of Médecins Sans Frontières, we are honored to host the 7th edition of Pediatric Days, held under the patronage of Her Royal Highness Princess Sarah Zaid, where continuous dedication to maternal nutrition in Yemen, a newborn taking their first breath in South Sudan, or a young survivor from conflict finding comfort and care in Gaza. These stories remind us that pediatric care is not only a medical duty, but profound moral responsibility. It calls us to act when others hesitate, to innovate when systems fail, and to stand firm in our commitments. To to those who cannot yet speak for themselves. Over the coming 2 days, we will exchange experience, challenges, and explore new ways to strengthen pediatric and neonatal care in humanitarian settings. Let these 2 days be a celebration of collaboration, courage, and solid belief that every child, regardless of where they are born, deserve fair chance to live, to grow, and to thrive. Finally, I would like to express our sincere appreciation to everyone who has contributed to making this event possible. From our organization team, to medical experts, to our partners and supporters. Thank you for your dedication, efforts, and bringing Pediatric Days 2025 to life. We also want to extend our appreciation to the management of the Regency Hotel for their generosity, providing this venue free of charge in recognition of Médecins Sans Frontières humanitarian mission and commitment to serving vulnerable communities. Thank you and welcome to Amman.
Thank you, Dr. Suhaib. Also, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Mego Terjian, the Director General and CEO of Medical Humanitarian Action for Development, MEHAD, former President MSF France. Dr. Migo is a pediatrician with more than 20 years of emergency humanitarian experience, who led and coordinated emergency responses in Ukraine, Somalia, Syria, and Sudan. We are honored to have him with us today. Dr. Miko.
مرحبا. راح أحاول أتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية، آسف. Dear friends, it's a great honor for me to participate today to the 7th Pediatric Day of Médecins Sans Frontières. As you know, I am a pediatrician, and my engagement with Médecins Sans Frontières began just as I finished my studies in specialty in Armenia. From there began a long journey during which I did my best to treat and elevate that suffering of children born into war, epidemics, or famine. The other day, I was surprised by a document written by a pediatrician for a preparatory meeting intended to MSF medical coordinators. It stated that pediatrics is a neglected specialty. It did not specify whom, but when such a statement is written by an MSF pediatrician, one might assume it is the organization itself that is neglecting children's care. Well, in 25 years of practicing medicine with Médecins Sans Frontières, at all levels of responsibility I have held, I have never felt anything of the sort. Even if none of the founders were pediatricians, let us remember that the very first scandal that motivated and accompanied the creation of the association MSF was the image of the Biafra war in Nigeria and the images of severely malnourished children that traveled around the world. Let us remember that the first public health tools used by MSF were vaccination and the fight against child malnutrition. Nothing has changed much. When I look at the 2024 statistics of MSF France that I chaired, 3/4 of hospital admissions are children, and 2/3 of medical consultations are for them. Children are the main focus of care, relief, healing, and prevention projects. Even if today's Pediatric Day is only the 7th edition, almost 10 years after the first one, MSF has been caring for children for more than 50 years. Today, what strikes me most among the suffering of children are the wars, foremost those affecting Palestine and Sudan, without forgetting the distress in the DRC, Yemen, and Ukraine. War, war, and more war. In Gaza, during the previous war in 2014, MSF had set a trauma surgery hospital. When counting the number of young demonstrators shot in the legs to disable them right after the 2014 war, and multiplying by the thousands of orthopedic repairs needed for physical rehabilitation, drawing on our exceptional experience here in Amman at the Reconstructive Surgery Hospital, the scale quickly became that hospital in Amman has treated about 500 patients per year for more than 15 years. And patients are coming from Gaza and million euros. The cost and logistics of treating thousands of open fractures seemed impossible for MSF alone. And we called on other organizations, especially in Gaza, to absorb such an epidemic of severe disabling injuries, which to this day still have not been fully addressed. This gives us only a glimpse of the immense effort the world must envision to treat and heal the 100,000 wounded people currently identified in Gaza, at least a third of whom are children. MSF will not be able to organize this colossal task on its own. This is why I allow myself to suggest a bit of humility regarding the new slogan that we have, no child left untreated, even if it may disappoint us. We must not forget that very few NGOs today can develop a wartime surgical structure like the one in Amman or those in Gaza, in Congo, Yemen, and Sudan, unless they belong to an army. Who still cares for what during the First World War were called the gueule cassée, the broken mouth, apart from MSF in Amman? We remain in the murky territory of neglected patients. I see yet another difficulty concerning pediatric trauma care, and this proposed slogan, ensuring that no child escapes our care. Pediatric trauma care is complicated by the need to preserve growth plates during orthopedic procedures, and this requires expertise that I hope we will discuss during this dedicated session today. Let me also add the funding difficulties affecting almost all NGOs and international agencies, including my small medical association, difficulties from which MSF has so far spared, so it sometimes must compensate for them in the field. Our second session of the pediatric days focuses on suffering that cannot be seen, the fracture that is invisible and cannot be repaired by surgery. Sometimes it is as severe as an amputation, so deeply can it burden, wound, or even permanently destroy one's ability to survive. Once the bleeding has stopped and the bone fracture has been reduced and healed, there remain other forms of suffering to relieve, and perhaps at the same time, if we are able. We are close neighbors to Palestine and thus to Gaza. Imagine the number of children who have lost all part of their family, who are sometimes injured, who are hungry and thirsty, who live in makeshift shelters and at the mercy of cold and rain, in an environment of massive destruction. The task of mental reconstruction, if it is possible, is immense. For more than 10 years, MSF France, Spain, and recently other MSF sections have implemented mental health support programs in this region. But the catastrophe brought on by the Israeli army's assault over the past 2 years has created a tidal wave of suffering. And if today's fragile peace holds, the children who are its victims will have only their own survival resources to rely on. I sincerely hope we can accompany them. Our third session of pediatric days is devoted to neonatal pediatrics. As everyone knows, it is the period in childhood where, when progress is made, the victories over mortality are the most impressive, but also the most technically difficult. Neonatal mortality can only be reduced with substantial human and technical resources around childbirth, which is why MSF long hesitated before engaging in this field. But for more than 10 years now, this pediatric specialty has been part of our therapeutic arsenal. Today, we will explore the concept of the mother-newborn dyad, which expresses the idea that an at-risk newborn is not protected only by an incubator, but also by siblings and family who are an integral part of the therapy that protects them. I hope that this day will nourish our shared hope, the hope at the heart of Médecins Sans Frontières and other medical organizations, and continue to motivate us in the direction we give it, prioritizing care for children who are victims of violence, disease, or natural disaster. I wish you 2 days of useful and productive reflection. Thank you very much. Shukran lakum.
Thank you, Dr. Mego, very much. Before starting our session, we are asking you for your understanding. Last thing also for the moderator, the panelists, etc. Please keep an eye on us. We will raise just to remind you of the time, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute. So yes, please keep an eye on us. Thank you. And the floor now to Anna.
Hello again, everyone. So I have the pleasure of introducing our first session today. I also have the pleasure of sharing one more administrative announcement with you, which is that we are offering simultaneous translation. Right now, that's functioning in French. We're working on the Arabic and English, so thank you for bearing with us. We will get that sorted today. Now, for our first session called No Child Left Untreated, Prioritizing Pediatric Trauma Care. I'd like to introduce Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan, who will be leading this session. Tanya is a pediatric critical care and humanitarian doctor. In addition to her clinical and teaching work, Tanya is a fierce advocate for children in humanitarian settings in both media and diplomatic fora. Welcome, Tanya.
السلام عليكم صباح الخير. I'm going to start
Donc je vais prendre 1 minute et s'imaginer que nous représentons justement ces enfants. Est-ce que quelqu'un de vous peut vivre dans une zone de conflit armé avec l'évolution de
child casualties and with the impunity and lack of accountability when it comes to international humanitarian law violations, the number has reached unprecedented levels. If we just look at Gaza alone, in the first 4 months of the genocide, more Palestinian children were killed than all conflicts globally combined over a 4-year period. And so that makes it particularly relevant that we're holding Pediatric Days this year in Amman. We're only a few hundred kilometers away from Gaza. We're in the middle of a region ravaged by conflict. For today's, and so this gives us a particularly good opportunity to highlight this neglected area of pediatric care. For today's session, we're going to focus primarily on physical trauma, but physical trauma is only one facet of the devastating ways in which conflict impacts children. Their health systems collapse, their education systems collapse, and they lose both the physical and emotional support striking to me is how adults and emergency care providers often felt uneasy when it came to the care of pediatric trauma patients. Meanwhile, child health specialists and pediatricians, although they have the skills to care specifically for children, often lack the essential skills for primary trauma care. And this lack of training, experience, and familiarity, as well as the heightened anxiety that comes around caring for children, was only exacerbated by the lack of child-appropriate equipment in terms of pediatric sizes and an unfamiliarity with dosing when it came to children. And the consequence of that is that many of the children we treated were inadequately treated for their pain because people feared using the types of drugs in correct doses for those. So for the next this massive global issue of trauma in children, and we're going to explore strategies to improve survival of trauma in conflict settings. We're going to particularly focus on testimonies from the fields and on strategies for improving pre-hospital care. We're going to start off with a testimony from a very dear friend of mine, followed by a session from the Blast Injury Group, where they're going to really set the stage for us on this issue. We're then going to get a short video example, pre-hospital intervention in the fields, followed by a session that expands that more and speaks more about the pre-hospital. And then we'll step and look at all the many ways outside of war that children may be impacted by trauma by looking at one of the largest registries of trauma globally. We're going to end with a panel discussion where we'll have a chance to interact directly with the speakers and brainstorm with us ways of improving survival of children in conflict settings. Just a bit of a trigger warning. I know you heard this before, but we're going to be discussing trauma, so the presentations do contain some images of injured children. We're going to start off with a testimony from my very dear friend and colleague, Dr. Mohammed Ashraf. He's an emergency medicine registrar from London, working in London at the moment. He has an MSc from Aberdeen University in Global Health and Management. And up until last year, he was working at Al Shifa Hospital in the center of Gaza City. It's the largest trauma center in Gaza. And so he's managed mass casualty after mass casualty, not only during the current genocide, but in previous assaults on the Gaza Strip. He has a particular interest in mass casualty management and improving the quality of care offered to patients in those settings. So thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Mohammed, and I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Tanya. Thanks, MSF, for having me today. I'll be waiting for the presentation to show up, but again, it might be the third time for this morning. There might be graphic content, so it's part of the tragedy that we live day by day, or people who are in a conflict living by day by day. So again, sorry for the disclaimer. Okay, until the presentation will be ready to show up. My name is Mohammed Ghnaim. I'm an emergency medicine doctor. I've been working, I've completed my studies from Islamic University of Gaza, and I've been working in a Shifa hospital.
Alors, il n'y a pas de point. Le deuxième diapositive, s'il vous plaît. C'est explicite. Bon. Une partie de notre formation à Gaza, c'était les urgences physiques, la formation quotidienne, chaque jour. En juillet 2022, j'étais instructeur. Il y avait une discussion sur le pire scénario que nous pouvons, auquel nous pouvons faire face. Et c'était estimé plus que 5 traumas pédiatriques. Il y avait peut-être en octobre 2022, il y avait 2 cas à Al-Shati, camp de réfugiés. Et c'était pour moi la première fois comme un pédiatre. C'était mon premier jour and, comme un officier de traitement. Et pour l'impact psychologique, c'était horrible. Il n'y avait pas assez d'équipe, de provision. Là,
Our hospital is the biggest trauma center in Palestine, not only in Gaza. And we are like dealing with a massive influx of casualties and unpredicted number of casualties.
et un nombre de casualités. Beaucoup d'enfants arrivaient dans de différents types d'endurance.
Without any of their family members, and we started, me myself started a coding system from the very beginning to make sure that if there is a family member came later, then they will be able to identify. It was a very simple coding system. In haven, this is the haven that my mom promised me. There was like, at the same time as you deal with this casualty as a doctor, it will be like a heartbreaking for you, and it will affect your psychological impact. Unfortunately, you can see in this picture a father that I told we have no infrastructure to deal with the casualty that your kid had already, and he just started to sing for the kid and recite Quran until the kid passed away. This is another picture for me just standing on one of our resource areas after like told another dad that the kid or your son is having a couple of hours and unfortunately we have no structure or no infrastructure to deal with this. The psychological support that was unavailable at all, either for staff or for survivors. So I was just telling the dad and move to the next, and that's it, which is a very horrible situation. At some point, I was the triaging officer when my neighborhood attacked, and I've triaged my own family members and my
blast injury. So thank you so much, Dr. Paul.
Excuse me for a moment. Good morning, and thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you, Liz, for inviting me, and the rest of the organisers. It's a real privilege to speak to you about a topic which clearly is occupying many of your minds. Am I changing my slides, or someone else? Is this a clicker? Anyway, we're on the right slide, so that's great. So I don't know if you know this lady. She's Eglantine Jebb, and it might not be. Can we go back to that slide? Sorry. Discrimination, etc., in what we would call military principles. And the crisis of accountability, no one has held anyone to account. The withdrawal from treaties on various weapons, and then leading into the long-term social costs. We know that millions of children have been injured and killed in war. We know that tens of thousands have been injured and killed in war in the last 24 months. Those children have been lost to society and lost to parents, but the burden and the social cost of the many that have been injured and survive is what we need to focus on and think about. So where is fast and why is it different? Okay, so the predominant mechanism of injury in conflict for a child is a blast. Now we can make it very different, and we can think about it simply. The major difference is the primary blast injury mechanism, which is the one as clinicians in Bristol or in South Africa or anywhere else in the world we very rarely see unless there's a civilian blast event, which is relatively uncommon. The rest of the mechanisms should be relatively familiar to a trauma expert. Ballistic trauma, penetrating amputation, flank trauma, traditional trauma that we see in many mechanisms, and then there's the thermal, which is predominantly heat burns, and then the long-term effects and the coronary effects. But the primary injury is what we're not used to seeing, and it's something that we need to be familiar about. Thank you. So I'm not going to give you a physics lecture on blast trauma, to put it into visual context for you, this is the primary injury. Video. blast injury. That's the delivery of energy to the body as that overpressure of air moves through that distance away from the explosion. That's the mechanism that causes the injuries we're not used to, like pouring a blast lung, pouring a blast gut. It has a physical and cellular effect on every part of the child's body. We need to be aware of that when we assess children, because you will see children occasionally without any sign of other injury, but just with primary blast effect. And that's what makes blast different. But never mind the differences, the rest of blast is traditional, penetrating, blunt, and thermal injuries that many of you will be familiar with.
والآن لنعد إلى الأرقام. أنا أعرف أن هذه صورا فظيعة. 5 ملايين أطفال يعيشون في مناطق صراع، وهي تشكل نسبة كبيرة من الأطفال في العالم. عندما بدأنا نعمل على الجروح المتسببة بالانفجارات كان هناك الملايين من الأطفال الذين يعيشون في مناطق نزاع، وهذه أرقام قديمة، هي الآن أكثر بكثير. 50,000 من الأطفال قتلوا في غزة خلال الأشهر السابقة. إذن النطاق كبير جدا، وهذه مشكلة صحية كبيرة. لو كان هذا فيروس لكان هناك إغلاق بسبب هذا الفيروس، ونحن لا نتعامل معها كمشكلة صحة عامة، ولكن علينا أن نقوم بهذا. نحن لا نجمع البيانات، من الصعب أن نجمع البيانات في المناطق التي يجب أن تجمع منها، وليس هناك تعاون مع بعضنا البعض. هناك سجل قديم كان له مدخل لكل مريض في المملكة المتحدة وكذلك من العراق وأفغانستان، وجمع الكثير من المعلومات المهمة. 25% من هؤلاء المرضى المدنيون لم يكن هناك تقييم كافي لحالتهم، وكذلك نحن نقدر. ومرة أخرى هؤلاء فيما يتعلق بالناجون، ولكن هناك الكثير الذين لا يستطيعون النجاة والوصول إلى المؤسسات الصحية. وفيما يتعلق بالموارد، مداخلاتنا البسيطة، نحن نفكر كيف يمكن القيام بهذا الأمر، وبالتأكيد لا أستطيع القول المزيد حول هذا الأمر. وحقيقة أن إصابات هؤلاء الأطفال هي أيضا تتعلق بحياتهم الاجتماعية.
Never go back into education. They never get educated. They then are restricted in their economic output, and they become an issue for society themselves for the rest of their lives. What do we know about blast injury characteristics? If you're setting up your facilities, how are we going to deal with this? We know that there's an all-cause mortality of 8% in hospital. Okay, so those are the children that survived in hospital. Again, this is Joint Trauma Theatre Registry information. That's 8% in what was at the time, and probably remains so, the most capable trauma system that the world's seen. A trauma system that the vast majority of children would not get to enter. And a trauma system that they had trained people used to an extent, dealing with it. And we also already touched on, most pediatricians don't do trauma, most trauma people don't do pediatrics. I stand here as an expert, but a relative one, someone who's seen slightly more blast injured patients than others. And there are people in this room who have seen way more than me. They're multiply injured, they're easy to injure. The energy and the proximity of everything, because they're small, means that they get multiple organ injuries. So most of them that come in surviving are critically injured, but have multiple compartment injury. Burns is predominant in 70%. Penetrating injury, because the nature of their bodies is high. And they have double the requirement for emergency surgery than adults. Versus the non-blast mechanism.
وبالتأكيد بعض الإصابات بسبب الحرائق. إذا ما كانت هناك 40% من الحروق فلا يكون هناك قدرة للنجاة. إذن هذه قرارات مهمة جدا للتعامل بها مع الأطفال. 30% 30% يكون إصابات شديدة جدا، لذلك فهي يعتبر حمل كبير جدا على
adult civilian patients in the same setting, so we're at the same vulnerability, we're not wearing body armor, etc. So children are different, yeah? They're not small adults. We like to say that a lot. And they're different and more vulnerable for lots of different reasons. So first of all, their patterns of life are targeted. They play, they socialize, they go to school. When something goes bang, it's usually a group of children that are injured. They're exploring things, they're picking them up. They're unable to assess the risk around them. They're not educated in risk assessment. We spend 1% of I'm going to say the wrong word, but 1% of demining or removing.
Les mines ou déminer, éliminer ces risques dans l'enseignement des enfants. Alors, les enfants sont différents physiquement, psychiquement des adultes et sont plus exposés à de telles atteintes ou telles blessures qui peuvent être moins dangereuses pour les grands. Ensuite aussi pour la propreté, l'eau potable, l'éducation, l'effet à long terme, la santé psychique. Les enfants ne sont pas des produits ou ils ne sont pas si cultivés comme nous, les adultes. Ils peuvent être affectés de différentes manières, ce qui les rend très fragiles. À vrai dire, nous avons beaucoup de défis auxquels nous faisons face. Nous avons plusieurs points sur lesquels je veux mettre l'accent. Le défi constitué par la perte d'une partie du corps. Nous voyons ceci d'une manière différente des enfants, les effets psychiques.
هم ليسوا مدربين لمثل هذه الأمور، ولكن لدينا حافز كبير جدا من أجل أن نتدرب على القيام بهذا الأمر. هناك فكرة قوية. إذا ما قمت بمقابلة الأشخاص الذين يعملون في هذه المجالات ونسألهم ما الذي تخشونه أكثر؟ كلما كانت هناك المزيد من الجراح، كذلك التعامل مع الألم. نحن لا نقوم بالتعامل مع الألم بشكل جيد، لا في لندن ولا في غزة ولا في أي مكان. إذن علينا أن نجعل من الألم أمر أفضل وأن يكون هناك
Socioeconomic disaster. Okay? We need to make pain matter. We need to make it visible. We need to understand it, and we need to treat it better. Okay? And all those things are well described in the Lancet paper. And we can do it. How many of you used intranasal fentanyl? How many of you have never heard of intranasal fentanyl? Okay, in that case, the numbers of people putting their hand up should be much higher, because you can treat pain simply, safely, and cheaply anywhere in the world with something stuck up their nose. Okay, children, okay, different but also the same, right? So we're all scared of children. This is my son. He has given consent by implication of being my son to be in that side. And he's scary, okay? Most of you are not pediatricians when you deal, most of our people who meet an injured child aren't pediatricians. If you woke up as a family doctor in Ukraine 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the next day you were a trauma doctor, okay? And if you're a pediatrician, you're a trauma doctor. So we like to be scared of children. We like to tell people that they're different. We have speciated the child for a generation of pediatric training. What they are most definitely not, though, is an octopus. Okay? They are the same species as every other patient you have ever treated in your life. We absolutely have to empower each other not to be afraid of the child and to treat the child. No one else is going to do it at that time. If you're an ophthalmologist or a pediatric trauma specialist, you're the person who has to do it at the time. So what can we do? Well, we can think about
and Dr. Six Bingbohe. Dr. Hannah Wild is a maternity resident at the University.
Il y avait des personnes envoyées en Irak. Pendant 5 ans, on a travaillé à réduire les chocs et les traumas jusqu'à 40-50%. Nous avons travaillé de manière régulière. Il y avait des défis. Nous travaillons avec certaines organisations qui traitent les explosifs qui n'ont pas été explosés. Nous voulons être en collaboration avec WHO, mais le groupe existant n'était pas satisfaisant. Il fallait s'adapter avec la situation. Nous avons essayé ceci à Burkina Faso, mais il y avait les menaces des explosifs.
They might be health workers, otherwise their respective community members, and they return to their communities to then deliver these trainings.
Ils sont revenus aussi, mais les personnes formées sont rentrées dans leur société locale et les résultats étaient rapides. Il faut qu'il y ait des personnes responsables et qualifiées pour répondre à de tels cas. Maintenant, il y a une vidéo, mais la voix n'est pas claire. On ne peut pas traduire.
Beaucoup de nos formations, soucieux de la nature des moyens pour permettre à toute personne, peu d'avoir du domaine de la santé, de pouvoir mieux comprendre et mieux assimiler les gestes. Il faut également noter que nous sommes souvent soumis à des contraintes, notamment au niveau d'appareils linguistiques, mais avec l'appui de ces gens, nous arrivons à faire passer le message. Il faut noter que le but ultime de cette formation, c'est de pouvoir permettre aux CEPA de prendre en charge les patients avec les moyens de bord. Ils arrivent déjà à déterminer ce que c'est une urgence, à pouvoir mettre en place un garrot, par exemple, pour arrêter un CEPA, faire une appel avec les moyens de bord.
والأدوات حتى عندما كان في قلب الجماعة هناك أشخاص آخرين وما حصل أيضا
كان علينا التعاون والعمل، لكن كان هناك عجز في الموارد ولم نستطع القيام بكل شيء. في جميع الأحوال فإن العلوم وما قمنا به ساعدنا على إنقاذ الأرواح، ولكن يبقى هناك نقص. Merci pour votre écoute et collaboration.
Our next speakers are going to expand more on the hospital space. We have Tim Gargan and Dr. Mirvat El Hilal. Tim is a paramedic and the global.
Nous avons Dr. Tim El Hilal qui travaille dans le domaine des premiers soins, qui travaille dans de telles régions. Son établissement est l'un des plus anciens qui travaille dans ce domaine-là. Il travaille dans plusieurs pays. Dr. Medved, désolé, on n'a pas bien le nom. Elle a travaillé en Syrie pendant 10 ans. Elle forme
They're both extremely passionate about improving pre-hospital emergency care, particularly the children who are so frequently the victims of unexploded ordnance. So thank you, Dr. Mirvat.
Les premiers soins aux enfants victimes des explosifs.
Okay, can I move this myself? Let's just see.
Est-ce que je peux présenter
Okay,
me présenter?
Aha. Okay, great. Well, thanks for the introduction. You've stolen my first slide of
Merci beaucoup
introduction.
pour la présentation.
Yes, I'm Tim. I'm a paramedic, but the paramedic bit is a bit of a midlife crisis after a few years previously doing on disposal and my clearance work for Halo and other organisations in various places. So I'm kind of looking at this stuff from both lenses, if you like, the medical lens and the mine clearance lens. Speaking of the medical lens, if we could just take a moment to say, as a paramedic, now that I work for Halo, I actually don't do much clinical work anymore. And just listening to the first couple of presentations this morning, I just want to say it's a real privilege to be in a room surrounded by clinicians who really are getting hands-on and helping so many people. I can't say I envy you working in places like that. I can only begin to imagine the stuff that you've all witnessed to. So thank you. This is Dr.
Si j'étais témoin de tel accident, je présente Dr. Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Nouraj, je suis médecin. Je travaille à Adlib et je suis contente d'être avec vous.
Halo's already kind of been introduced. We've been around since 1988. We work in 30 countries all over the world. Pretty much anywhere there's been a conflict in the last 80 years. Down there in the Asia Pacific region, we're clearing up landmines and bombs from the Second World War. All sort of post-colonial, Cold War situations in Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, anywhere there's been a war, basically, we are there clearing up the bombs and the landmines and doing our best to educate the population about the risks that are there. In Syria,
هالو بدأ العمل في سوريا عام 2017 كان النشاط متركز فقط في محافظة إدلب حتى تحرير سوريا عام 2024 بدأنا العمل في مناطق أخرى حاليا نعمل في درعا، دير الزور، حمص، حلب، ريف دمشق. تقريبا غطينا جميع المحافظات السورية من تخليص المجتمع من مخلفات الحرب وتأمين حياة آمنة.
So you'd be forgiven for wondering why a landmine clearance charity that doesn't really do clinical work here. Obvious, and we've just heard very eloquently from the previous speakers that children are so frequently the victims of this stuff. The evidence is there. The anecdotal evidence of the media and everything for the last few years. Also the academic evidence as well is there, and we know the numbers of children, and we just think as Halo that we should be doing something about it. We have a moral imperative to leverage our position in some of these places to actually do something about this. Dr. Mervat's just going to explain a couple of slides of data that we've received from some hospitals where we work.
هذه الإحصائيات إدلب من مشفى إدلب الجامعي خلال شهر واحد تقريبا 20 إصابة أغلبهم من الأطفال 20 إصابة بين 9 أطفال مصابين من مخلفات الحرب بعدها هاي الإحصائية من محافظة درعا من مشفى درعا الوطني كمان خلال شهر واحد حوالي 19 إصابة بينهم 8 إصابات من الأطفال لاحظ أن النسبة عالية من الأطفال جدا هذه الإحصائية في كل سوريا نلاحظ أن عدد الإصابات 948 بينهم 359 طفل الإصابة بالإضافة إلى عدد الوفيات 569 بينهم 161 طفل. أنا حابة أحكي قصة طفل كان عم يروح على مدرسته يوم من الأيام حاول يختصر الطريق فراح من طريق زراعي وللأسف تعرض للإصابة بمخلفات الحرب فقد ساقه بعد فقد ساقه صار عنده فوبيا من الروح على المدرسة إضافة إنه صار يحس إنه هو غير قادر على الدراسة بسبب فقد الطرف بعد التشجيع والدعم حاولنا معه حتى رجع لمدرسته وكمل دراسته بالرغم من فقد الطرف نتمنى ما حدا من أطفالنا يتعرض لهيك إصابة بفقد الطرف.
What I find particularly powerful about those last couple of slides that Dr. Mervat talked through is the first two were just screenshots of an Excel spreadsheet that a hospital doctor in Idlib and also in Daraa sent to us out of just sheer desperation, like let's look at how many people we're seeing here, and can you please come and help us do something about it? And we really feel that sense of urgency coming from them. I spoke to a paramedic outside Idlib University Hospital a couple of months ago. And you know when you look at somebody and they've just got that look in their eyes where you know they've just seen everything that there is to see. And the poor guy was utterly exhausted and just reeling off a list of injuries that he's been to, which is really difficult as a father and a paramedic to look at. We just heard from Hannah. She is the lead author on this paper, and we've been working with Hannah and with Extract for the last year or so, really, to see how we can help and we can take on her kind of passion around the community first aid responder project and get it out there across Halo. And we decided that the best place to really get going with that would be in Syria. Halo is, as I said before, we're not a medical charity. I'm talking to one half of the room here. We're not a medical charity. We're out there clearing up the bombs and landmines. Our focus is explosive ordnance disposal and mechanical clearance of landmines and risk education. But because we're working in such dangerous places, we have to have robust pre-hospital sort of systems in place to protect our staff. So Dr. Mervat is responsible in Syria for making sure these guys are all trained and equipped and ready if one of their colleagues gets injured at work, which unfortunately is possible and does happen around Halo. And because we've got that and we do this training in these kind of austere environments, we just think we've got that presence and we've got that ability. We should be leveraging it. So that's what we're trying to do. Paul really helpfully used an analogy that I was also going to use. Having worked as a paramedic in a really high resource setting of central London for a few years, I think the only time I've ever had a success story with a cardiac arrest where the person has actually made it to hospital or maybe had a discharge from hospital after being resuscitated is when you arrive and the train station worker has already put the defibrillator on them and done some resuscitation before you get there. It's the same with this first aid stuff. We can't wait for an ambulance to arrive. These blast injuries and these trauma injuries, they're not like somebody falling over and breaking their hip back home and waiting for a couple of hours, which is terrible, but they're going to survive.
or a broken arm or something. This is like penetrating trauma where people are going to bleed to death, and we need to fill that gap in between the injury happening and an ambulance arriving. And we just think that this is the perfect way to do it for now. So this is where the community first aid responder training comes in. We will use our risk education people to come out and deliver this training to civilian people in the community just to fill that gap.
طبعا نحن كل الفرق عنا مدربة طبيا على التعامل مع الإصابة بمخلفات الحرق مثل حالات النزيف، البتر، تحرير المجرى الهوائي، طريقة النقل الآمنة. كل الفرق مدربة، لكن حاليا عم نعمل على نشاط جديد هو تدريب المجتمع المحلي على الإسعاف الأولي للتعامل مع إصابات الحرق، وهذا النشاط رح يكون عن طريق تدريب فرق الصحة المجتمعية على الإسعافات الأولية، وبالتالي هن بيقدموها للمجتمع المحلي بسبب قلة عدد المشافي أو بعد المشفى عن المناطق الريفية أو عدم توفر وسائل النقل. نحن عم نخطط لنعمل هذا المشروع حتى نساعد المجتمع المحلي بتقديم الإسعاف الأولي الصحيح من الإصابة بمخلفات الحرق والنقل بطريقة آمنة للوصول للمشفى، بالإضافة إلى تزويدهم بأرقام تواصل لسهولة الوصول. نتمنى من هذا النشاط يخفف عن أهالينا هنيك، يخفف من الإصابات ويأمن لهم عودة آمنة.
Yeah, so Hannah kind of already alluded to this, but the curriculum is World Health Organization aligned. It's been developed by experts such as the guys from Explosive Weapons Trauma Care Collective, and also Paul and the Pediatric Blast Injury team have been involved in the curriculum as well. So it does have a specific element for children, and just really emphasises just getting on there as fast as possible, because we know that any delay in children is absolutely deadly, because they just cannot, they don't have the physiological reserve to survive for as long as an adult might do. So it really emphasises getting hands-on quickly and just breaking that inertia that sometimes happens when something bad has happened and people kind of stand around and don't really know what to do. We've all seen it when things happen in the street in front of us. Often the first impulse is to get your phone out or just stand there because you're stunned, and that's fair enough. Even I, as a clinician, sometimes have that feeling of hesitation when approaching an injured child, but we need to get over that and help people just have the confidence to get over that and get hands-on as quickly as possible. And that's what this curriculum emphasises. So just to finish up on that, at the moment we've got the curriculum translated into Arabic. It's ready to go. Dr. Mervat and I have been going through it over the last few days, and we're going to start the training of our staff in the next couple of weeks. It's still going through the approvals process with the Ministry of Health in Syria, but inshallah, as soon as we receive that, we'll be able to start rolling the training out. And just to also say, we're not proprietary about this at all. We're very, very happy to share that. I've forgotten to put my contact details on the slide, but I'm sure we'll work it out somehow. If people want access to this or just want to have a look at it, then get hold of me somehow, and we'll work it out, because we just want to get this out there. We don't care who does it. Let's just get it done. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim and Dr. Mervat. So we've just seen a really interesting way that different groups in different spaces can collaborate to improve survival of pediatric patients in trauma. We're now going to take a step back and expand a little further on all the different ways children may be affected by trauma outside of war and conflict zones. Professor Sebastian Van As is Emeritus Professor of Surgery at the University of Cape Town. He headed the trauma unit at the Red Cross Children's Hospital and was chair of Child Safe in South Africa for over 2 decades. Child Safe is an injury prevention unit that aims to reduce and prevent injuries of children. He's published extensively and is the editor of the textbook on pediatric trauma and child abuse. So without further ado, Professor.
Thank you very much. Sorry, you didn't see me. I was standing behind you. I was hiding. My mouth is already dry. My name is Sebastian Van As. and I come all the way from Cape Town. I would like to thank MSF for inviting me, and especially Edward, Elizabeth, and Naushin, who were in contact with me. It's quite daunting to be in front of all. Thank you very much. In front of all of you. I very often, I'm a pediatric trauma surgeon for almost 30 years now, and I often felt very lonely because I'm alone in the hospital in the province promoting trauma for kids. But if I'm here in this room, I see I've spoken to people from the entire world, all of them with a passion for trauma in children. So that's very heartwarming. This year. So I come from Cape Town, which I think most of you haven't been to. And it's a pity because it's the most beautiful city in the world. We've got a Table Mountain. I climb that every week on Sunday morning. It's 1 kilometer high. And for the people who haven't been, go there. It's been chosen the best tourist destination for at least 8 times, and the best tourist destination in the world. So I talk a little bit about pediatric trauma, the context of it, especially for low and middle income countries, and then the importance of prevention of trauma. If you look at the Millennium Development Goals, I'm from that age that I can still remember them. They were, I think, created in the 1990s. It was to reduce childhood mortality, but we haven't done a good job. And I would like to just give you a very quick overview of the true childhood traumas of our time, and then the second part of my presentation, what we can do to make it better for children. So what are traumas? So we have to look for the evidence. So you look at data, not at statistics only. So childhood injuries is a really very big thing, and it's a global problem. It's not in one country or another, it's in all countries. And if you look at Africa, Africa is in the south, but there is no reason to put the south at the bottom of. So this is a map of Africa how I think it should be. Africa should be on top. And also the north. Europe. Hardly see it at the bottom of the page. So we've got 1.4 billion people estimated, of course, but what is interesting is that it's the only continent in which there are more children than adults. South Africa is a little bit different. We've got about 60 million people, of which 20 million are children, and about 500,000 are disabled children. Now, if you look at the data of children dying from injuries, you can see, if you look at this graph, South Africa is doing very bad. It's completely there on the right. And the chance of a child growing up in South Africa to die from an injury is almost 10 times the chance that the child dies from an injury in Germany, which is completely on the left side. Now, if you look at what type of children, which are the children who are more vulnerable? So this, first of all, a lot of media attention goes to violence against children. But if you look at these two columns, you can see that injuries is a much bigger killer than violence. And if you look at the children who are the most vulnerable, you see these are the red ones. They are the children under the age of 5. So they are very young, small children who are the most vulnerable for accidents and injuries. Now, why is that so? Now, my theory is that children up to the age of 8, they are neurodevelopmentally immature and they cannot protect themselves. We, as adults, we have to do that for them. So if a child gets an injury, it's not an accident, it is a neglect from the caretaker or from the parent. So that may be a little bit tough to swallow, but I really think that is so. If you look at the literature talks about accidental and non-accidental, so violence and accidents. But I think that's a wrong assessment. I think we should put all the children under the age of 6 who are in an accident, we must call that non-accidental, because there was neglect. The parents and the caretakers did not do their job. According to the WHO, 3 of the top 5 killers of children killers of children are injury related. So this is a map from World Mapper, and I hate statistics. So this map, World Map, is a very interesting map. It expands or shrinks a country looking at a particular. So this is a map of where the children in the world are dying, and you can immediately see where are the children dying. They are dying in Africa and in India. These are the most vulnerable countries. Now, why is that so? It's also simple demographics. The demographics on the left is in a developing country. There's a very high mortality, so the number of children under the age of 5 is big, and then because they die, the number of children between the age of 5 and 10 is much smaller. So it becomes smaller and smaller. And there's a very small group available to look after all the kids. If you compare that to the developed or Europe, there is very little mortality, and there's far more adults available to look after the children. Now, if you look at the number of children, I'm from a tiny country which is there in the north, it's from Holland. And in that, I don't know if the pointer works. How can I tell? Sorry, it didn't work. So I can point it out. I nearly attacked one of my speakers. So that country has got more doctors than in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. So this is fair, it is divided. So Africa, where the mortality was so big, you remember the previous slide. So what are children? Biggest killer. Of course, the death is only, it was related to presentations. It's only the tip of the iceberg. For every child who dies, children are disabled, who spend long times in hospitals and have to attend. And this is just a few slides of children who I treated in my trauma unit. The effects of trauma, was also mentioned before, are not only physical, the detriment to children who've been in a major trauma for the rest of their life and their career is magnificent. Alcohol is a very big problem. In South Africa, it is estimated that 70% of all accidents and injuries is related to alcohol abuse. So that's mind-blowing. And in violence, it's even more. It's 80% of domestic violence is related to the abuse of alcohol. And alcohol abuse is very common in Cape Town, and it's the most common cause of children born with disabilities globally. And in spite of that fact, there's free alcohol advertising, which all children can see. There's a free sports sponsorship, which is, I think, a criminal event, because you associate a healthy body with alcohol, which is completely absurd, because alcohol is the worst drug of all drugs available. And young children are very vulnerable. They haven't developed, like us, a filter to see what is real and what is not real. So I think we could do far more. Car crashes. Africa has got problems with transport, but especially safety belt use is a low-hanging fruit for children. They shouldn't be dying because were not stepped up. We looked at the children coming to the hospital when they were in the car with injuries, and 86% was against the law, not restrained. So they were sitting in the car came to a sudden standstill, and then the child was flying out. So a child becomes like, if the child is thrown out, the biggest part goes first. So which is the biggest part? No matter what was the position of the child in the car, the biggest, heaviest part is the head. The head will go first as a bullet, break the window, so the glass goes in the face, and then it will hit the other car or the pavement. So it is a very big cause of death in children. So because 86% of children which we treated as patients were not restrained, we thought let's look what are the people going into the hospital premises. So that's parents of patients, but also staff who brings the children to a crash. So we just did an observational study at the entrance of the hospital, and 89% of people bringing a child to hospital did not restrain it. So remember, the biggest cause of death is road traffic crashes, and the second biggest after pedestrians is passengers. So people putting their child at risk, well, they of course want to save, to make it good for the child. And don't hold the baby on your lap. Many people think that the small baby, I saw a tiny little baby yesterday, and people think they can keep it safely on their lap. That's not possible. If the baby is 10 kilos and you drive 50 kilometers an hour and you come to a sudden standstill or in a collision, the child becomes because of the acceleration, deceleration forces, the child becomes 500 kilos. No one, not even Mr. Universe, is able to keep that. So it's not going to work. So caring people step the children in. So that's the first litmus test you can do in a country. And just to see the astronomical numbers. We talk about terrorists all the time, terrorist attacks. And you stand in the queue. I came here via Ethiopia, standing in the queue for hours, checking my bags, because the people are scared of terrorists. The total number of people dying from terrorists is 5,000 per year. Armed conflict is 370,000. Now look at motor car crashes, 1.4 million. Massive, the biggest killer. Children in war, we've spoken and you've seen the horrific images, so I don't want to go into detail, but there are horrible conflicts. One important thing is I was also in Gaza. These children were both injured not from fire, but just because there was no electricity. The mother was cooking in the dark, and the children walked into the place and were injured indirectly. So it's not from weapons, but indirectly. Sudan, there is a horrible conflict. I was yesterday speaking to John from there. What is interesting is if you look at civilian deaths, so not soldier deaths, civilian deaths, in the past it was like 50%. In the Second World War, because of indiscriminate bombing, it became 70%. But what is really crazy, now we've got advanced technology, so-called smart weapons, and look at the number of civilian deaths, 90%. So the weapons are not that smart. Well, what can we do to make it safer? We can do a lot. The vision of Child Safe, which I've been running for 2 decades, so to create a safer world for children. It was started by my predecessor, that was the first professor of pediatric surgery in the Southern Hemisphere. And he realized at the bottom, more operations are performed for accidents and injuries and trauma than for all other causes together. And he thought we must do something about it. We can't sit and wait. It's ethical, not just to just only treat and sit in the hospital waiting for patients to arrive. We should be going out there and trying to prevent it. So we do research, education, and advocacy. So all of them are pointed to increase awareness of the vulnerability of children. We started a database in 1991. It's the biggest trauma surveillance system for children in the world. We see about 10,000 kids a year under the age of 12, so we've got an enormous wealth of data, and we published more than 100 scientific articles based on evidence. This is just causes, a very simple draft. The red one is violence, all the green ones is accidents. Education, we've got a national, we promoted for a National Child Accident Prevention Month every August in South Africa. Child safety courses for teachers and parents. We've got a newsletter which we distribute online. We've got educational programs at schools. We supply life skills, curriculum materials for schools. And we also run media campaigns. Media, the journalists can be a big friend. They like stories with children, and last year, in excess of 30, we got in excess of more than 30 million rand. Child safety posters. South Africa is a country with 11 languages, and one picture often says more than 1,000 words. So what we did, we analyzed our database, and we looked at what are the most common injuries in the age group 0 to 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, and so forth. So we can show the parents who bring the child who had an injury, what are the most likely injuries for the other children. One example of a project we also did is Safe Travel to School. There was a horrific accident in 15 years ago, and we decided we have to do something. So if you look at crashes with schools, they can be due to poor transport systems and vehicle worthy, and is poor driving. So what we did, we developed a program focused on the driver and giving monitoring how is the driving via a cell phone, a tracker in the car, so we can see how fast the car accelerates, how often he quickly stops, how he cut corners, how many times he exceeds the speed limit, things like that. And then what we do, we track it, and every month we have a session with the driver and say, listen, this is how you drove, this is now what you must not do and what you must do. So every 3 months we get all the drivers together, and the drivers who drove the best gets a cash prize, which is very important in South Africa as a poor country. And once a year, the best driver of all gets his own car, and he can start his own business. So this is really the number of taxis we were involved has grown dramatically. We've got now close to, this is an old slide, close to 2,000. And this is the spots in Cape Town where we have. And this is the national award. You can see how many people are involved. All these guys are taxi drivers. If you look at this graph, the different colored lines is bad driving. So the higher, the worse the driving. And the taxi drivers started as these colored lines, and then over the course of the 2 years, they all became much, much better. And the gray ones is the general public, is the people we monitor for other reasons. So our taxi drivers drive much safer than the general public. So there were no injuries or deaths during the program. They drive better and they continue to improve. We also do advocacy. We were in Parliament for various things, or whatever we think is dangerous for children. We make a point. We run child safety seminars in conferences, and we also presented a child-friendly submission to Parliament for the new firearm bill. In South Africa, there was a lot of firearms, like in the United States. And in 2001, we performed the first PowerPoint presentation in South Africa Parliament, and we showed them pictures of children who were shot. So the parliamentarians, they were blown over. And they immediately accepted a very tight law, and it dropped the number of children being shot by 70% in a very short time. And not only children, also adults. If you look at the green line, the total number of adult people shot and died, that also decreased by about 50%. So we often hear about vaccines, and it's been a hot debate, especially since Corona. But where is child accident prevention? Prevention is so much better than cure. It is, first of all, for the politicians, it's much cheaper, far less suffering, and far less death. It's impossible to prevent the abuse of children directly. But research has shown that the risk factors for children to die from accidents and violence, many of the risk factors are very similar. So if you make the society safer for children so that they have less accidents, then automatically you will see that you drop the violence also. So our world is created mainly by adults for adults. And children often get a very, very tough, hard deal because they are not sitting in the room. So child safety starts with all of us. And it's really a task for all of us. kids under the age of 8 cannot look after their own safety. And I would like to leave you with a thought of probably one of the biggest statesmen who came from Africa, Nelson Mandela. He says, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. And I thank you for your attention.
There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way it treats its children. We're not doing very well, are we? Just a quick reminder to everybody that there is translation. Arabic is channel 2, French is channel 1. بدي بس أذكركم إذا حابين تسمعوا ترجمة باللغة العربية في قدامكم الهيدفونز العربي القناة على القناة 2. Si vous voulez une traduction en français, il y a le casque devant vous et vous pouvez écouter. C'est le chant 1. Sorry? Oh, sorry. Arabic is 3. Okay, اللغة العربية and French is 2. Arabic is 2 and French is 1, right? Okay. Thank you. And كمان إذا حابين تسألوا أسئلة باللغة العربية اسألوا ممكن نحن نترجم. Et aussi, vous voulez demander vos questions en français, on peut faire la traduction nous. Merci.
Thank you, Tanya. So my name is Liz. I'm a pediatric consultant, the pediatric advisors from MSF France. Our Q&A session. I'm hoping lots of people have got some questions burning to ask our panel of amazing expertise up here. I am so thrilled that we have chosen to focus on this topic to start our conference and think about conflict in children. I mean, I'm very biased as a paediatric emergency medicine doctor. I spend a lot of time thinking about it, looking after children who are injured, teaching it, and I know that it is a topic that tends to fall through the cracks. As paediatricians or paediatric nurses, often we feel uncomfortable in the emergency or the resuscitation room. As emergency doctors, general doctors, then we can also feel nervous about treating a child, may not have the right equipment, may not have the right training, the right tools. And we've heard a lot about that already from our panel so far. There was an experience for me back in October 2023 that really made it clear to me that I wanted to focus on this topic today. And it was right at the beginning of the Gaza conflict. There was a meeting taking place to do some planning around our MSF response to that. And I was told that as a paediatric advisor, I didn't need to attend because there were no children that were making it to our MSF health facilities. Now, our MSF charter is that we exist to provide support for victims of conflict, victims of disaster, natural or man-made. And I feel very strong. More impacted often in these disaster situations. Should be doing, hopefully are doing. And so on that, I'm going to take the moderator's privileges and ask the first question. We haven't introduced him yet, but Chris is sitting at the end. He's our Ops representation. He is Dr. Chris Hook. He's an emergency physician from the UK. He's also Deputy Medical Head at MSF Brussels for the emergency pool. So Chris, today in MSF, how are we doing?
So, I mean, we've heard today some really stark numbers. The numbers of injured children out there in conflict are massive. And certainly in my career, one of the things I thought about was, I think if I want to be involved in MSF, we see a lot of kids. I need to be relatively comfortable with kids, and then I need to be relatively comfortable with trauma. We see a lot of trauma, and I'm really appreciative that MSF now are focused to combine those two, because we've heard already that experienced trauma clinicians are not comfortable with kids, even when you've experienced lots of mass casualty. aware of is we these places where conflict injury in MSF to the care that's being provided. And our reputation for doing that is often what gets us access. And our ways of working tend to get us to places quickly and with the ability to respond in a large way. And with that comes a responsibility to do things well. And I think if we turn up and we say, yes, we can run a trauma center or we can run an emergency room, but we don't really like the kids side of it so much, then we have no business trying to say that we can do that. We're talking a lot today about the certain phases of the injury. I mean, we barely touch upon pre-hospital care a lot, and community training for pediatric injuries almost non-existent in most of our programming. But this goes all the way through to rehab of these injured patients, as well as their surgery, and then their mental health support at the end as well. And there are loads of amazing things that are being done in MSF, but with that responsibility, like I say, I think we can do a lot of things a lot better, and we don't need super advanced experts in most of the contexts where we work. We've heard from Paul Reevely the basics of simple care, doing things well, understanding a few key differences for an injured child versus a medically ill child, or the difference between an injured child and an injured adult. It's not a lot. And so I think just doing those basics well, pushing this as a topic so that we are all up to date, all the clinicians in the field and people developing programming are aware of what our limitations are. Do we have the right equipment? Do we have the skill set? Do we have people trained? And making sure that we, as a group, as an organization, are able to feel confident in ourselves that in our programs we can do this, but also that we can pass that confidence on to the people around us, that they can trust us to do this well, and if they follow what we're doing, that things will improve. So, like I say, in many of the contexts we work, I follow Gaza from the headquarters, and recently we're talking a lot about what comes next in Gaza if this ceasefire holds. And I talked to a lot of people about, should we specialize? Should we push for pediatric surgery more? Should we push for pediatric rehabilitation more? What about mental health for injured children? And the response is always, "Ooh, yeah, but I'm not sure we have that as a clear specialty yet. And so should we be doing it?" And I think, yes, we are the sort of organization that should be driving this forward. So it's really great to see so many people here as part of this conference. I'm really great that you've highlighted this as an area for us to work on to improve. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm sorry to have leapt on you for the first questions. Have we got a moving microphone for the Q&A? Just getting hold of some microphones. Keep your questions ready. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Fawzi Al-Hamouri. I'm a pediatrician. Also, I'm a hospital manager. Also, I'm the chairman of the Private Hospital Association in Jordan. But we also established the Gaza Health Initiative in November 2023, 1 month after the war on Gaza. And I must say that we have been collaborating with MSF Jordan and MSF Gaza, and I would like to thank them for all the efforts that they are doing to help the people, particularly the children in Gaza. And I really look forward to have more collaboration in making the mission of bringing 2,000 children from Gaza to be evacuated to Jordan for treatment and then to be sent back to Gaza. This is the initiative which was brought by His Majesty King Abdullah. We already brought more than 300 children. Now they are in Jordan, treated in different private hospitals, including MSF hospitals. I have a guest from United States last month, Professor Jeffrey Goldhagen. He is the president of an international society for social pediatrics. He is advocating that the pediatricians in the world, who count now 1 million pediatricians, are the best witnesses of the agony and the pain the children are having in conflict zones. Are we as pediatricians doing that? Are we documenting what the children are suffering in conflict zone? Are we providing testimonials in different media or courts, wherever we can? Because we are the closest to the children. We are seeing the trauma, we are seeing the agony, we are seeing the pain, we are seeing the killing of these children. So I'm calling for every pediatrician in this hall and everywhere in the world to be a witness. Witness on the crimes committed on these children, wherever they are, in Gaza, in Sudan, in any place in the world. So this is my message and this is my question for my colleagues all over the world. Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you very much for that. I wondered, Mohammed, maybe would you like to respond? Is there a microphone?
Yes. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fawzi, for making this point. It's my first time to say, me as a kid, I was treated in one of the MSF facilities when I was injured in Gaza. It was like more than 50 years ago. It wasn't a bad injury. So MSF has been doing a nice work around. But as a doctor during this genocide, when Ashifa Hospital has been invaded and I've been forced to move to the south, I've been appointed by the Ministry of Health to change an administrative building to a hospital. And this hospital needs to be handed over to MSF, and they will bring the workforce to run this hospital. They called it later Indonesian hospital in south of Gaza. So I was the clinician who was responsible to prepare this building and transform it from administrative building to a facility to treat injured people. Unfortunately, again, all the equipment that I had was for adults. No, like very simple equipments like cuff for blood pressure or airway equipments or whatever. Nothing was available for kids. And then we handed this over to MSF. I wouldn't say this is the fault for the Ministry of Health or this is the fault for MSF. This is the fault on all of us that we don't advocate for this to happen. This is the fault that we heard from you as well when you have been told that pediatricians don't need to be involved in this kind of stuff. And we have heard from my colleagues here about the numbers of peds or kids who has been injured during conflict. This makes a responsibility on our shoulders to advocate for this, to make sure, hopefully there is no conflicts happening in the future, but anyways, it's happening, to make sure that kids, they will have the right to be treated equally as adults and more, because they are vulnerable people. This is in terms of the physical impact on kids. I've highlighted about the psychological impact. Imagine 3 years old kid coming to hospital without any family member, and just these kids seeing my face, like taking a pen, writing kind of numbers and letters in their bodies, rushing them to the emergency room in recess, and doing the stuff that we do as an emergency doctor without saying, just like we say in Arabic, Habibi ihda, or calm, like a little one. We don't have time to say this as a clinicians, because if we spend saying this or calm them down, other people will die. So we need to highlight as well the psychological impact as well.
Thanks. I just wanted to say something on that point. I mean, advocacy is really important, isn't it? I mean, it's part of the partnership thing that we do. Save the Children do our advocacy, we write books, Imperial College do the research. It's a huge part of it, yeah? But in this room, is there any further argument you need as people involved in this, you know, all the right people in all the right places with doing all the right things? Do we need to win this argument here to say we need to program something, we need to train our staff, we need to buy a few bits of cheap, high-impact equipment? Advocacy is vital. We all have to speak up. We've got a moral duty. But I don't think many organizations who are in the parts of the world that are meeting these children need to be persuaded. It's within our gift, I hope, and I don't know how they are structured, but it should be within our gift. We don't need to be persuading each other. We just need to be doing.
Thank you, Paul. I think there were some questions over here. You got the microphone?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you so much to all of the presenters for really powerful and very thought-provoking presentations. Just a quick question on sort of, I guess, next step forward. You've identified significant gaps in paediatric trauma care. And so just thinking about moving forwards to equip both our facilities, so our physical spaces, and also our workers with the skills and the ability to give the quality of trauma care for children that we'd all wish. So just thinking about practical next steps forward if possible.
Great. So maybe Chris, Paul and Tanya, if you want to comment on that one.
Yeah, from my side, it's a bit to sort of from the upside to try and push it onto you guys. There are training courses that Paul has developed that you'll have the opportunity to participate in later this week. Some of you, and my role in the ops group, I see it very much as trying to bring people together to keep this momentum and highlighting to the residents that we are going to push to do better in our projects at this topic. So to make sure that it maintains a high level of priority wherever we start trauma projects, emergency room projects, and things like that. So I will be trying to push the medical departments to make sure they have mechanisms to put in place the well-trained people and drive those standards.
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I mean, Chris is absolutely correct, and I'll just a small point of correction. I didn't develop this course. It was Chris and Gavin Wooldridge who were the co-founders of it. So I'm not claiming any credit for it. I've sort of overseen it, and it's of great benefit to the many people who've done it, and kudos to them. And also Gavin had heavy input to many of the slides that we saw today. This is scope of practice, so how do you develop a capability? There's lots of ways of looking at it in structures, and I'm sure you have one organisationally. The two key things are your people and their training, and then obviously equipment. You can be encouraged that the equipment burden is quite low. You don't need much. Okay, I mean, there's pediatric size catheters, there's cannulas, there's all that kind of stuff. Surgical procedures with that if you're scared of that kind of capability development, if you looked at every child operated on in coalition facilities in Afghanistan, there were no specific pediatric surgical maneuvers or pieces of equipment required to deliver that care. And there were a tiny handful of pediatric surgeons, and that is absolutely not to say we don't need you, because we absolutely do. And then capability development is yourselves, your scope of practice. We all have to meet our scope of practice, and that is doing the training, that is taking resources with you. Take the manual, it's in 8 languages, it's free, you can use it, you can abuse it, you can chop it up, and you can build your own courses on it. The course is free. So meeting the scope of practice, which Chris touched on, you're going to see injured children. You need to be good, you need to protect yourself and them by being ready to deal with them.
Just to expand on the paediatric trauma resuscitation course, which Chris and Paul are talking about, it is running on Wednesday, Thursday of this week. It's a 2-day course. It's a multidisciplinary team simulation-based course, really excellent. And already we've had conversations with our MSF L&D departments where very, very kindly the PTRC team have given us their materials, their sims for us to use and start embedding within our paediatric training initiatives within MSF, which is a fantastic first step. I think there was another question over here.
Thank you to all the speakers. We work in many projects with trauma centres and emergency rooms, but how can MSF address the pre-hospital care gap?
So I think, Tim, that is going to come to you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'd say, coming back to our presentation, I think, well, to Paul's, first of all, that 85% of patients, paediatric patients, are dying before they get to hospital. You know, is that right? The critically injured ones. Having worked in a pretty high resource setting in central London, even there where you're, you know, relatively close to your patients as a paramedic, and you know, there's this functioning call centre most of the time that can get an ambulance or a clinician to somebody quite quickly. You still end up arriving too late at the time for the really poorly people, and I think that's clearly magnified in some of the settings where we're working. What I'm really keen for in the Halo Trust is that we have a similar reputation to you guys in MSF, that we will go to the places that nowhere else will go to, and we'll take risks to get out there. So I think we've got a real opportunity in some of the places where we're working to do things like this community first aid responder project. I'm really, really happy to share all the materials that I've got. I mean, I didn't create them. They came from Extract and the Paediatric Blast Injury Partnership, and are aligned with the World Health Organization stuff. We just have to get on with it. You know, you will also have clinicians working in remote areas who, and I know you're all really, really busy, but I imagine you're probably doing some kind of community outreach stuff in some of the places where you're working. So if you don't need to be a clinician for this. This curriculum has been designed especially for people who have no medical background and no equipment. And yeah, I'm really happy for us to partner together to do that and get that out there. I think hopefully I've answered your question. Would you like to add anything else?
Can I just quickly highlight as well? It's also you know, you hear time and time again, like MSF don't do X, Y, and Z, or we don't do it that way. And I think we need to make sure that everybody that's working in the project understands that that's just not a thing. We have complete independence and flexibility. So if you are working in your project and you realize there's a way that we can cheaply and easily save lives by implementing some form of pre-hospital care, then suggest it and drive it. It come from the projects, like you say. It's, you know, one of the first things we do in any conflict zone is we go and we arrive and we say, oh, we're going to do trauma. Or even before we've arrived, we send teams into places with a sort of, you know, the vision of, well, you're going to a trauma hospital. But we're seeing from the statistics there are things we can do cheaper, potentially more easily and quickly, that might have a bigger impact. Now, we might not always find easy ways to capture that impact in the data, and everybody loves to see the number of red cases that we've seen in an emergency department, and that proves that we are saving lives. But we need to just find better ways at convincing people that what we're doing is really valuable, and find for the projects, tell us this is we can do this here, we have access, we can do it safely, we can do pre-hospital care, and that will more cheaply have a bigger impact on what we're doing. So it's for everybody in this room to take away home. There is nothing that we will not do because we're MSF that might save the lives of an injured child. We will try. So, yeah.
Melissa at the front.
Thanks, everyone. I'm Melissa, Pediatric Nursing Advisor. Perhaps just to follow on from that question, we've talked a lot about pre-hospital care, the acute management of pediatric trauma. How can we continue to address the gaps in pediatric trauma aftercare?
Sebastian, would you like to?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. I work in a children's hospital in Cape Town, and we cover an area of sort of like 1,000 by 1,000 kilometers. So we get referrals, for instance, with children with extensive burns. They get a superb treatment in hospital, and then they go home and we never see them again. And that is such a tragedy. So I think the crux is to have a very close relation with the area where the areas where the children come from. So you cannot centralize care for traumatized kids, and you can't, and the aftercare, it has to be in the district. So from the beginning, when the child comes, you should start building a relation with the area where the child comes from, and then take it from there. Because for the kid, it's impossible to travel up and down. So it's crucial that the care, the aftercare, is supplied in his own environment. Thank you.
Just to say, even when we were talking about equipment and like specialized equipment for pre-hospital and emergency hospital care for pediatric trauma, I mean, the same applies for post-care. If we just think about, for example, an amputation usually needs on average about 8 revision surgeries for the stump before you even think about moving on to sort of the more lifelong rehabilitation. And then your prosthetics actually have to adapt to the growth of the child. This is a sort of thing that takes not months, but years. MSF's project here in Amman, a lot of people here know I'm a really big fan, not because I'm from here, but because I actually think it does a very unique thing for a region that's ravaged by war. And I wish we could offer more of that for so many people, because it's such a huge gap. I'm in touch a lot with some of the families of patients I cared for in Gaza, and because I've established those relationships, people often reach out to me about other children. And children are sitting in their tents, festering with open infected wounds, with amputations, with no possibilities of rehabilitation, with severe contractures because of spinal injuries. They never receive rehabilitation, so they effectively lose the use of that limb. And it's great that MSF and other organizations want to go in and do the heroic, what we consider heroic emergency work. I will tell you, as someone in intensive care, that one of the biggest causes for morbidity is not the fact that we don't have the acute care, but it's the fact that nobody thinks the aftercare is interesting or sexy or worth or fundraising worthy, when in fact it's really one of the things that most impacts the child's ability to integrate back in the world with a decent quality of life and function.
Thanks, Tanya.
If I can add something, I was involved in the tsunami care 20 years ago. I think it was 2004. And I remember going, I mean, the tsunami had a massive amount of attention and media campaigns and donations. 1 year after the tsunami, we did a follow-up. There was not a single social worker working in Thailand to deal with the social problems. It was really horrific.
I think we've now got some questions from online.
Yes, thank you. There are many questions coming from the online audience. So many of them have already been addressed. Just among them, having talked a lot about training today, and training of healthcare workers on pediatric trauma, and training of communities on risk education and first aid, how do we put pressure on decision makers to invest on this? That's a big question.
Yeah, just put your pressure. There are multiple representatives all around the room from ops here. I'm sitting staring them in the face. We want to have this ethos of ideas coming from the projects where you're working, where you are experiencing having to deal with these problems. You guys have the solutions, or you have the information that you can give to us, and just keep applying that pressure. Now, like I say, you will often find that people in positions like I have will have a bit of a vision of what we think we should be doing in a certain place, but it's removed often from where we are. And hopefully you'll find that good ideas float to the top and they reach us and we take them on. Our proposals for the next phase of the Gaza conflict have come entirely from the field and what they see as the ongoing needs. This is not me picking what from a distance probably needs to happen. So make proposals, talk to us, and back it with good information, and use the data that you have in the project level to tell us what you think is wrong. The reality is this, and we will listen. I promise you.
Yeah, if I could just add to that as well, one of the ways that I've been approaching this in Halo is just by really highlighting, first of all, because everybody wants to know about the money, don't they? It's cheap. It's almost free. The curriculum's already made. You hardly need any materials because the whole purpose of it is to teach people how to do this stuff without any materials. There are papers, existing papers, which highlight how good this is, and we're also hoping to work on one as well. And I would also just emphasize the lasting impact of it by teaching people first aid, which doesn't sound that exciting when you're in a room full of such accomplished doctors and clinicians as yourselves. It's so simple, it feels a bit disingenuous, but it will have a lasting impact when you leave that clinic. Like you were saying, when you go back a year later, at least you've left people with some skills to sort of help themselves and help their community. So that's how I do it in Halo. But it's hard, isn't it, to convince people?
If I can add just a quick thing. My message for the policymakers, the question was like how we can address this to the policymaker. I'm sure that everyone here in this room is a policymaker in some way. The message to the policymaker is hear from the local, please. Hear from the local people. The local people, they are the best to tell what is needed. I appreciate your experience. I appreciate that you work in Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, everywhere. I appreciate that you've been working for more than 3 decades, 4 decades. But please, hear from the local people because they are the best one to tell. If you're not a policymaker, and if you're not a policymaker, you can facilitate your colleagues' voice to be heard to your boss and to your policymaker by putting more pressure. I've been working for Palestinians, Doctors Without Borders, not myself, yours, Dr. Larry. I've been working emergency preparedness before this conflict. We have made a lot of research and tried to So we try to amplify these voices, but unfortunately we are facing pushback from policymakers at some point because we have done this in somewhere and we need to apply what we have done somewhere else to these settings, which is completely different.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think those were really important words to bring this session and Q&A session to a close. The importance of hearing from the field. It's been an amazing session. We have an enormous amount of expertise on this stage, but thank you also to the audience for all of your questions, your participation, and for listening. And for hopefully now we have convinced you of the importance of this topic. I'm sure actually you're all convinced already. You know, sometimes the conversation around pediatric trauma reminds me a little bit of the conversations we were having around neonatal care 15 years ago. We can't do anything to move the dial on neonatal deaths. We need incubators, we need ventilators. Now, I don't know what the pediatric trauma version
On ne peut certainement pas faire effectuer tout ce que nous désirons faire sans les outils et les équipements nécessaires.
We should be having this conversation. We should be talking about the things that we've heard from Halo, from Sebastian's experience in South Africa.
On va parler de tout ce que Halo nous a dit, l'expérience de Sébastien, etc. Donc merci à l'audience et merci aux panélistes. Nous allons parler en plus ample détail de la santé psychologique et son effet et son impact sur les enfants. Voilà. Vous dites là.
All right, thank you again to Tanya and to everyone who participated as panelists and as presenters during that very rich and very moving presentation. We're going to do one final short session before we take a break. Prior to doing so, I would like to just again acknowledge and thank our very distinguished guests who are here with us today. We invite you to stay throughout the day if you would like to. At the moment, we would invite you to a reception that will be downstairs. So if you would like to participate in that, Dr. Suaib, who was our first speaker of the day, is outside the doors and ready to accompany you down there. For everyone else, prior to going on our first coffee break, we're going to just tease you a bit with a glimpse at a couple of the posters that you can partake in while you enjoy your coffee or your tea. So I'm going to invite Marie, Laura, and Alexis up here to share a brief bit of information about what their poster is about, and then you can go for more information and discussion with them downstairs. So, Marie.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mary Clarice. I'm a nurse trainer and also a learning designer. So we are presenting today a poster on how we use training with different methodologies, and we have proved to increase the confidence of the nurses in providing care to newborn in a refugee care setting in Nduta, Tanzania. So 30 nurses and midwives, they receive a training on newborn care, nursing care, and the training was composed of online learning, clinical case discussions, face-to-face sessions with simulation, and then a bedside mentoring. So the training was given in French and in English. And we have evaluated the nurses' perception of confidence before and after the training. And we have seen a great increase in their confidence. So this training was part of a quality improvement care. And what we have seen in this hospital, we have seen a decrease in the mortality rate of newborns that went from 11.7% to 8%. So if you want to know more how we did, and if you want to have more details in how we conduct this training session, you are welcome to see Eva Pascal, my friend, my colleague, or me, and we'll be down to the poster and we'll be happy to see you.
Hello, I'm Lara, a pediatrician nurse, and I'm working with MSF Academy for Healthcare. I'm really glad to be here, and I would like to introduce the poster, which is called Bridging Gaps with Specialized Trainings from Identified Gaps to Specialized Trainings, a roadmap for neonatal nursing excellence. Which this poster reflects indeed a simple but vital truth. Neonatal nurses are at the heart of care for the most fragile patients. Yet the needs assessment conducted across MSF projects reveal that these professionals often work without the specialized tools and training they deserved. The objective was clear: to understand where gaps exist and how they impact nurses' ability to provide safe, consistent care. The findings were striking: challenge in pain management, medication safety, feeding practices, infection control, and family-centered care. These are not just technical gaps, they are that comes for vulnerable newborns. These posters represent a roadmap to change, a competency-based curriculum designed to strengthen. For those who believe that empowering nurses means improving care for every newborn, we invite you to with Osama, which is here, and Rebecca. Together, we can make neonatal care safer and more compassionate. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'll make this brief because I know I'm the last person between you guys and coffee. So my name is Dr. Alexis Schmid. I'm a pediatric nurse and public health practitioner. And briefly, would like to describe our locally led trauma training program in Ukraine. So the problem that has been enunciated this morning is that there's a lack of preparedness, training, and capacity to deal with pediatric trauma. To meet this need and the increased need for trauma and emergency care throughout Ukraine, Boston Children's Hospital and Harvard partnered with International Medical Corps to develop and implement a training program that's now locally led across Ukraine. Boston Children's partners with NGOs, UN agencies, local organizations to move forward pediatric care as well as health system strengthening initiatives. So briefly, we developed a 2-day pediatric trauma course as there was no open source training that was publicly available. And the program had 3 objectives. 1, the development and the implementation of this course, sustainable integration within local education systems, as well as to pilot this course that could be scaled to additional contexts. And I guess, spoiler alert, it has. So we assess the effectiveness of the course through knowledge, skills, and confidence. And the content was delivered through didactic frontal lectures, skill stations, interactive case discussions, and team-based simulation training. We also developed a second curriculum, which is training of trainers and associated facilitator guides and job aids. Implementation had a three-part approach: international instructor-led courses, TOT courses, so Ukrainians, to teach Ukrainians how to implement this course themselves, as well as Ukrainian-led courses that had international membership or mentorship, pardon. Now the training has been integrated across 6 universities across Ukraine, prioritizing the Eastern front lines, and has been scaled to Tigray, Palestine, as well as this modularized course has also been implemented with our Indigenous health colleagues, less blast trauma, still guns, unfortunately, to assess if they've taught the course to others and implemented the course. And for our other settings, we have patient level quality metrics as well that we're analyzing. So happy to discuss further at our poster downstairs, open to collaborations or discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. So you can see those posters and many more downstairs. If you go down the stairs and to the right, you will find coffee, tea, refreshments, and a lot of interesting things to read and see. We will start back at 11:50, so please be back by 11:45 so that we can start on time. For those of you online, we look forward to seeing you all back at 10 till the hour. Thank you.
JK.